This video is going to be one of 3 different series of videos talking about different deck building techniques you can use and deploy in your drafts. This one, we're going to be talking about aggro decks and how typically most limited decks are going to be falling under the category of an aggro deck, a mid-range deck, or a control deck. Most, I would say 80 to 90% of decks are going to fall under the category of a mid-range deck. But today we're going to hyper focus on the aggro part of aggro, mid-range, and control so you can understand what an aggro deck looks like. You can understand what a mid-range deck looks like in the next video, and you can understand what a control deck looks like in the video after that. So when you're playing a game, you can better assess whether or not you should be the aggressor or you should be the one defending, also known as like trading off resources. Let's get into the draft. So when drafting an aggro deck, I strongly encourage not to go into the draft thinking you're going to be pure aggro. This because it cuts off a lot of the more powerful cards at 4 or 5 mana. It cuts off more of the expensive cards. Aggro decks typically need. The benefit of aggro decks is you need a lot of creatures at the 2 and 3 mana slot, and more modern day limited sets is going to include the 1 mana slot. And in the past, I'd say 5 to 6 years ago, that wasn't the case, but it is. 1 mana creatures are definitely becoming more prevalent. This means you can typically not play your rares at 4, 5, 6 mana. You want to pretty much ignore removal over 1, 2, 3 mana creatures. And you just want to hyper focus on getting enough creatures so you have a high mass of 1, 2, and 3 mana creatures. So every single hand, every single 7 card hand, 8 card hand, what you want is you want to be able to play 1 mana creature, next turn 2 mana creature, next turn 3 mana creature, and then have that removal or combat trick to back up the aggression you're deploying. And in this draft, I'm going to deploy one way how you can get into aggro is by just starting off with a rare that encourages more aggressive play. And Gumdrak Poisoner isn't exactly that rare, but it's cheap enough, it's especially good enough that this is a rare that can play in any style of the deck, which is also why it's a good pick. But then we get past Spiteful Hexmage. It's a very cheap card. It lets you double spell. And another advantage to aggro is that you can double spell on turn 3, double spell on turn 4. And using all your mana, playing multiple cards on a turn gives you an extreme board advantage on your opponent if you can take advantage of the aggression and get them dead before they can what we call stabilize and stop your attacks from hitting them down to 0. So here we see a Torch to the Tower, which is actually a premium removal for aggro, or any deck, honestly. It's cheap, it kills a lot of the early stuff, and we're definitely going to be taking that and looking to be black-red aggro in this deck. And I would say Torch to the Tower is one of the removals that you would want to prioritize over a creature. It is the exception. Minecraft Daredevil is okay, but it's still 3 mana. We can hedge a little bit here by not still being aggro and being a mid-range deck by taking card draw, which is what we end up doing here. And then we take Grabby Giant over Borderland Ranger. Because we still don't know if we're pure aggro deck or not. And we take Horseman for advantage. So I was actually leaning more towards being a mid-range deck with this card advantage stuff. What do we end up taking? Oh no, we take up. So what happens in pack 2 is we open another Torch to the Tower, which premium removal, we end up taking it. We can still be mid-range, we can still be aggro. Okay, so pack 2, we could take a 2-drop, starting to lean more towards picking up the aggression side of the curve. And even though you're mid-range deck still needs 2 mana creatures and 3 mana creatures. Mid-range, the difference between mid-range and aggro is that mid-range needs more removal to deal with your opponent's bombs. They're more likely to draw them. The games are going to go longer. Whereas aggro, mid-range is going to play less 1-drops. Aggro is going to play more 1-drops. The benefit to aggro is that aggro is trying to kill your opponent by turn 5, turn 6, before they can deploy their bombs, before they can stabilize, before they can do really anything in the game to help them stabilize and win. That's the benefit aggro. The downside of aggro is that you need both colors of mana by turn 3, even turn 2, because it needs to deploy everything on time. It can't miss damage. You have to make sure you're hitting your damage whenever you can. It can't miss damage. It can't misplay. It can't miss land drops. And it needs to be playing on curve. It need the beats you're hitting each and every turn needs to be precise and on point. Because if it falls behind, if it miss a beat, because if you miss a beat, you give your opponent more time to stabilize. So we're going to start with a Rockcaster Trainee. And then next pack we pick up a second Hex Mage, which definitely makes me want to go pure aggro. And here we're going to take another 2-drop. Just fill out that curve, that what we need. Here we're going to take either a 2-drop. Yeah, we end up taking Witch's Mark. No? What did we take? We ended up taking Concited Witch. My video kind of glitched, so yeah, we ended up taking Conceited Witch. And then, oh man, this video definitely glitched out. Alright, so we took a couple 2-drops between those 2 picks. And then pack 3, we're just focusing on creatures, filling out the curve, getting the aggression going. Now at the end of the deck, this is what our aggro deck curve looked. Yeah, that video glitched out, so let's go to the next draft and get hopefully a better example, but I'll show you quickly here what the curve looks like. We have exactly four drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 drops. Playing 16 land. Now this next aggro deck, we specifically went in with the intention to draft aggro. So we are taking a 2-drop common drop over 3 uncommons I typically would never take over this 2-drop. But for the showcase of drafting pure aggro, we take the 2-drop. And next pack, you just slam up a ginger root. Ginger root is one of those cards that its home is very much an aggro. And once again, we're taking a aggro card over something more powerful. Just filling out that creature curve. Remember, you want to get 18 creatures. All of them preferably 1, 2, or 3 mana. And then the rest of the cards are either going to be combat tricks or removal. And we pick up 1-drop here. And then we pick up another 2-drop ball guess. Red typically slants more towards aggro. So more of red's cards are going to fit in the plan of aggro. That doesn't mean blue cannot be aggro. The thing about blue and other colors is a smaller portion of their cards are going to be focused more on other plans, and therefore it's harder to get the cards that work with a aggro plan or a control plan. They're more split, and therefore what I consider to be more of a support color to where it can support the other color that you are trying to make the aggro plan work. So here we're going to take a Red Tooth Genealogist. I don't like the Cure Slinger in aggro decks. 1 power doesn't do anything with aggression. It's easy to erase 1 power things. I have come to find over my course of play. So we take the Red Tooth Genealogist, and we might be looking at green red. And now this next pack, we're gonna take the Umfe as a 2-drop, take another Umfe in the next pack, take a Spear Guard, and still just focusing on those 1, 2 mana cards. And the rest of the pack has nothing. Rounding off that pack, we're looking at pack 2. There's no, definitely at this point, we're either focusing on red, blue, or red, green. And since the only cheap card in this pack is not a creature, but it is a removal spell, we end up taking that. Followed by another red removal spell. Kind of disappointed. The reason I'm not taking Toll Mirror is those kind of cards typically wheel, which being able to wheel a card and knowing that it will be good in your deck or the style of deck you're trying to play is also kind of an advantage in a way, because it allows you to get a pick, 2 picks out of a pack that you know you're gonna play, where otherwise that pick might have not been used in your deck, or you didn't need to take the pick at a premium spot in the draft. And that's why we're taking the removal here. And yeah, Joan Stopgap is also a blue tempo card. We still haven't decided on if we're blue, red, or red green yet. So we end up taking that. And here we're just gonna take a red 2-drop, still deciding on whether or not if we're red green or red blue. So red 2-drop here is perfect. And another red 2-drop for that reason. And we just take the green 3. And rounding up the pack, we take a Crescendo, which is good in a go wide aggressive deck, which we kind of can be. We hit the board fast, and then we can Crescendo for those last points of damage. And at this point, we're looking at more green red. Wheel that Tool Mirror that we said we were planning on wheeling. And now we're just looking to get more creatures. Right now we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 twos and ones. Pick up 2 or 3 more, and then maybe some 3 drops. But right now the deck is shaping up to be pretty good aggro deck. Pick up a Werefax. It's not ideal, but it can work with the Grand Ball, yes, making it stronger, harder to block, be a good combat trick creature. And it's okay to play 1 4-drop in aggro deck. Um, I typically suggest not playing more than 2 or 3 4-drops in an aggro deck. But it's okay to play some. Here we take a Crescendo again, and then an Edgewall Impact, Brave the Wilds. A Daredevil is a good pickup for Compact Trick Creature. And here, looking rounding up the pack, the deck ends up being a really solid curve. I expect to hit my 1 mana creature, 2 mana creature, 3 mana creature very consistently in this deck, which I would say this deck is a successful aggro deck, and I'm going to show you some of the games from this deck. So what we're going to do here is we're going to run these games at 2 times speed. So as you can see, hand 1, we have 1 color of mana, which isn't ideal. You definitely want most of the time both colors, but because our curve 1 and 2 is going to start with the color we have, we end up keeping it. A 1 mana and a 2 mana play. And we end up playing that out because we know we can get the celebration trigger to hit for 3. And the next turn we can play 2 mana, 2 mana, and double spelling on turn 4 is extremely strong. We have 3 rats out. Look at this board already. On turn 4 we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 power out. And now we can just remove their creature. And pretty much this is the game. Oh, we don't see the line though. Well, actually, well, it would have traded for the 3/3, but that's fine. Now we're hoping to draw a card. To trigger celebration. And we end up doing that. What do we do? Right, we curse the Werefax trading with the 3/3 because they cooped up, and now we played the trigger celebration and hit for lethal. Next game we have both color mana. How fortunately we don't have a 2-drop, but because we built a deck in such a way that we have so many 1s and 2-drops, I'm confident that 90% of the time we're going to find a 2-drop on time. And it's not as high as 90%. We can always just do that, but no, it's not even close to 90%. That was really hyperbole. But this is fine. Definitely getting the aggression still going. We have a combat trick to save our creature if they go for removal. It does not protect against that. However, we will have a 4-drop follow-up. This is one of the slower starts of the deck, so it can be problematic, but we're still looking fine. Celebrant to bounce that is going to be a problem. So we really want to just get in as much damage as possible, which I think we end up crescendoing here. And then we play the 1/3 to save the creature. really pile on the damage. Get them to 2, 1, and then they die to Beta Blast from the next turn. So this is a perfect start. We have 1 into 2. We're on the draw. Being on the play, sorry, not the draw. We're on the play, which is very important for aggro decks. Kill them in Iraq, hit for 4. Already down to 14 on turn 3. Stab wound my creature, that's fine. Play my 1 drop. I unfortunately am missing a second red source, unless we could have gotten an extra 2 damage there. Stab wound is whatever. Now I can crescendo here, which seems fine, but I can also play. But the crescendo is just too good not to play. And also make 2 racks. We're looking at 4 power to my opponent's empty board. The aggression is really showing through. Now we can just play the 1 drop and play that and get through the final points of damage. Or close to it. Here is another good draw. We got 3 mana, 3 lands. We got 1 into 2. And we're on the draw. I mean, we're on the play. Yeah, we can just discard land. We don't need it. She's been hitting for 2. Play Scavenger. Now I am wishing we had that 3rd land, but it's fine. He might hit for 2. And we get in for 4 there. They didn't block. They end up having a Curse of the Werefax, I see. So now we have Combat Trick. But that's not really going to do much. I'm just going to play my 2 and pass. And here is where aggro decks have trouble with if they are missing damage, if they can't get through their aggression. I'm already losing this game. Like, this game is already lost because I wasn't able to get through the attack. And that land discard was primarily a big part of that. I'm not 100% out of this game though. My opponent is down on cards, but they have 2 Welcome to Suite too. It's like, this game is over. Yeah, this game's pretty much over. So this showcase is the weakness of aggro is whenever your opponent is able to stabilize, and whenever you miss damage, we had what 2 turns that we took off not doing any damage to our opponent. It really makes it. The more that happens, it really makes it harder and harder and harder to actually start the damage back up, and gives your opponent more time to draw into answers, and it makes it really difficult. And as you can see, they were able to do so, and we lost that game. Well, we have another pretty good opener. 1 mana into 2 mana. Doubt the black. opponent is thinking they can race us, but we know our deck is built purely to just put on the aggression. We got them to 13 on turn 3. And now we can crescendo this turn. And give something first strike if we need to. And since we know they don't have an answer to this, definitely giving our creature first strike. And they have it cooked up. That's fine. Let's move over the equipment. Hit for 3. They choose black. And just move it back to the rat. And I think we end up playing forest and playing out the 1-drop. They do have an answer, so this is gonna be tricky. Okay, this is fine. We're gonna go back on the aggression, but then we're gonna surprise them with a couple more rats. Draw Titanic Growth. Attack 3 for 5. They go for Candy Grapple. Make them pay. Get them to 4 pass. They still attack. Play that. Aha. Okay, now we just have a lethal with trample. Okay. This is a decent start. However, I wish I was playing a 2-drop here instead of this, but it's fine. Picnic run. Alright. We just attack, see if they black, and then play our 4-2. And they play a glass casting. Okay. Play Swift Spear, hit for 3, pass. You do have Crescendo up. We are expecting to win the race here. Okay, so they go for a double strike. Interesting. Okay, go to 7. I expect a black. I'm just gonna Crescendo here. The only way I can win is to just keep racing. If they have anything, they have something. They have a crescendo of their own, and that's game. Sometimes you just can't play around things, and sometimes you just have to try to enact your game plan. And if your opponent doesn't have anything, then it will work. But if they do, then sometimes that happens. Another okay, actually another good start. 1 mana into 2 mana. We have 3 colors. I mean, we have all 2 of our colors. Yeah, we are on the draw, but that's fine. Our aggression is still fast enough that being on the draw against blue is probably fine. That is going to stop my 1-1 from attacking for the time being. It's not permanently. Play transmute. Interesting. Okay. So now we just make it a 3/3 and attack because of the celebration trigger. Then we have another celebration trigger. Uh, I think we just play the pack because I can't really attack into the 3/4. And it makes Crescendo better next turn. And I'm not under any pressure at all, so I can even just play out Rakesha Trainee and make Crescendo really good, which I end up doing. Okay, and now they don't even have mana open. This attack is really going to be something next turn. I ended up going wide enough that Crescendo is really good here. Now this last game showcases the weakness of aggro. This is definitely a mulligan. We have one color. We don't have a curve at all. And we mulligan into a better hand. We have a curve. We have one. Well, we have one drops. We can get some aggression going. Oh, that was a good draw though. But definitely a hand that needs a needs to find things off the top of the library, as opposed to the other hands just having the salad start already. We had a mulligan. We were still missing green. A lot needs to go right for this game for us to win. And this is showcasing a very big weakness of aggro decks. We end up finding the land though, so we can attack back. An opponent decides to, what do they do? Try to race or go to black. And they are going to try to raise. If we draw Crescendo here, that would be really good. Do they have the torch of the tower, which is why they are deciding to race. And at that point, I don't think we can win this game. So now we need to make a decision. Are we going to attack? Are we going to attack with everything? And yeah, we do. Really take that. I guess we are going to try to race by just getting damage through. Because if we draw another Titanic growth with the blue, but this game is looking just out of reach. So what we should have done here, because we now we can still win with the brute, but now they just have a second torch to the tower, and yeah, we were just trying to figure out a way how to race, and that almost worked because we would have been able to block the 1/1, and then if we draw something else, we would have been able to um we would have been able to hit lethal with the ginger brute, but as of that, opponent did have the second charge to the tower, and we weren't able to successfully erase them. And for this final draft, we do something similar, where we just focus on aggro. We did open a 1-drop, which is a good spot to start when you open an aggro rare. But we're just focusing on picking up cheap creatures, combat tricks, removal. And then from there, figuring out what colors we're going to be based on the cheap cards we see. And so far, we've seen a lot of red cheap cards. So we're definitely going to lean towards red aggro again. And we're gonna either pair it with red, white, red, blue. You could really pair it with any color, honestly, at this point. But we're gonna put that to the side because we wanna kind of lean on red, blue if we can. Just because I know red, blue can have some tempo play, and I kind of want to showcase how red, blue tempo can work. And so far we're just mono red. Ooh, we picked up a curiosity. Yeah, we picked up a uncommon reason to be blue red tempo, which we're just gonna showcase blue red tempo here. And it's a good spot to just full commit to blue red aggro tempo. Pick up a torch the tower. And now we're gonna move the 9 creature spells over to the side so I can just see my creature curve a little bit more easy. Oh, picked up another familiar. Picked up. Nice, nice. Pick up some combat tricks, some. Oh, wow. Those. Those picnic ruiners go really well with the blue combat trick. And you get up a nice removal here. And another familiar. And another ball, guys. Oh, this deck is looking to be really gross. Very fast. Pick up another 2. Another familiar? Yes, please. So, yeah, this deck is also a very, very solid aggro deck. And I'm going to showcase a couple of games here. And let's get to the games. So during the games, like any other aggro deck, is heavily dependent on me curving out 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, having some combat tricks, removal. But when that happens, and you can get the aggression and pile on the damage, you can end games very quickly. And one reason why this is good for aggro is it is, in a sense, a form of card advantage when you end the game when your opponent has 5 cards in their hand still left, stranded in their hand. When that happens, it is a form of card advantage because they weren't able to use all their resources, where you were able to play all your threats, all your resources in a timely manner or faster than they were able to, and win the game through pure aggression and damage. And uh, aggro is a very one-trick pony style of gameplay. It does one thing, it does it very well, and when it staggers, it will fall short a lot of the time. But it is a viable option, and it is one I don't recommend full force going into, but it is a viable option, and it is something to keep in mind, keep in your pocket if you are in a deck or in a draft or in the middle of a draft where you've seen 0 removal and you're seeing a bunch of creatures, especially at lower value mana cost wise, to have as a backup plan. And that's kind of what full-fledged aggro decks, when I don't have a removal, when I don't have bombs, when I'm seeing 2 drops, and I'm picking up 2 mana, 3 mana creatures, I have these aggro style of deck plan in my head as a backup plan, and that's essentially what I use aggro decks for. And that's really all I have to say. Aggro decks are one-trick ponies. They either do their thing or they don't, and they can be flimsy with the mana. They flood out easily, and but they can be really fun. And I would recommend The things you can learn from aggro decks is it teaches you to use your mana efficiently every single turn, and it teaches you to use your resources as best and as timely as possible, because it is so focused on the now. I need to get benefit from this now. And that's a really useful tool to also learn. And I think aggro decks, as flimsy as they are, can teach you a lot of how Magic plays and how Magic just kind of flows. But with that said, I'm gonna let this game finish, and this is the aggro video. I hope you learned something cool, and I'll see you in the mid-range video. Oh yeah, and one more thing. Aggro decks just have the ability to use combat tricks to cheese out wins from the opponent, which is what we do at the end of this game. Alright, see you in the next video.